And now, this week we introduce you to a couple of trail bikes Suzuki Canada hopes will introduce new riders to the world of off-road trail riding. Recently, while attending the Zeka Moto Camp in Parry Sound, Ontario, we brought along both a small-wheeled, drum brake-equipped DZR125 and its big-wheeled, disc brake sporting bro, the 125L. We then invited several riders to sample both air-cooled 125 singles over the course of a week-long beginner camp. And here's how Chief Instructor Clinton Smout filled out the DRZ report card. So Clinton, this is a little bit of a departure from our regular road test, but how else do you test a couple of new models like these? And I thought bring them up to Moto Camp, let the instructors, let the kids try them out. You're the chief instructor, you got to play for a couple of days. What do you think?
A lot of fun. I'm so glad to see the manufacturers are supporting the youth market again.
Yeah. There
was a time when the only bike you could get for an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old was a motocross bike, either a KX60 or an RM 80, 85, which is a very steep learning curve for an absolute beginner. It can be done, but it's involving some falls. Where this type of motorcycle, extremely quiet, very user-friendly, a lot of fun to ride.
What about in terms of the big wheel bike versus the small wheel bike? Who do you see would sort of use one versus the other? Why are there two versions of these kinds of bikes?
I'm guessing the manufacturers looked at, this is obviously more economical because we don't have a hydraulic front disc, so it's cheaper to produce.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a fascinating way of reaching two markets. This could be an entry-level, tall 10-year-old, probably an 11, 12, 13-year-old, and you could start this bike. I think a lot of established off-road riders would buy this for a significant other.
Right.
As an entry-level starter bike. A little bit taller, a little better front brake, but everything else is identical.
Yeah.
Suspension seemed the same. The larger wheel gives it its higher off the ground, but other than that, they seemed identical.
What did you think about just the engine in terms of its startability, usability, user-friendliness, the motor?
Excellent. Well, we use 100 of the Yamaha TTR-Ls, 125Ls, at Humber College where we have street rider training.
Yeah.
And we went from electric start bikes to the kick start. So some staff and students struggle with the kick.
Right.
But once you have a knack for starting a lean 4-stroke, they're easy. 1 or 2 kicks and you're away.
Right. I guess the suspension is pretty much set up for trail riding?
Yes. If this was on the track and you were doing any kind of air and landing, it's going to bottom out because it wasn't designed for track use.
Right.
Now, the stature of a rider that's going to ride the small wheel, for instance, is probably going to weigh less than 100 pounds, so they'll have a little bit better suspension. If you and I were out there flogging this, it might hurt our back after a while.
Right.
But for what it's designed for, adequate suspension. It's enough to absorb small logs and ruts that you may find in a trail that's been used by ATVs or routes that are exposed.
Right.
And that's the trick. If you have enough suspension that you can keep trackability and traction, then you're not going to fall.
So if you're going shopping for this kind of a bike, let's say this one here, what kind of things am I looking for? Do the tires look like they're adequate? Does the plastic and paint and the fit and finish, does that all look like it's going to do the job for me?
It does. Of course, these are obviously brand new, but from my experience with the Yamaha product, I guess 5 years now with TTRs, from the prototype stage up, the decals stand up. Because it's plastic, it has a little bit of movement and give.
Right.
So if the person does fall, it's not steel, it's not going to bend up, it just bounces back right into shape. They wash and clean up very nicely. We haven't done that yet today.
Yeah.
And the track was a little bit muddy. Tires are perfectly adequate for a beginner bike. If Jeremy McGrath jumped on this, he'd probably notice in a second the tires wouldn't suit his needs, but for what it's designed for, perfectly suited.
Thank you very much, Clinton, for giving us an overview, and thanks for letting us play with them on the course.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Thanks for bringing them up.
A lot of fun.